Folks, how you doing? So on we go to the next session, and what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to introduce you all to what became known as the E3 Culture of Leadership model. So I'm going to walk around the entirety of the model at a reasonable clip, probably take me about 20 minutes tops to get through both of these slides. So you'll get an understanding of the entirety of the E3 way of leading, and then what I'll do over the subsequent days is I'll spend time looking at each individual driver and giving you tips and hints and guidance and ideas on how you can bring them to life. Okay, so let's get on with the show. So the premise of all of this is that, and based on a bunch of research that I and some other people in my cohort undertook back in 2003, was that every high-performing team is characterized by having what we came to describe as a culture of leadership. Right? What is a culture of leadership? Well, it's an environment where, and if we go to the middle of the model here, it's an environment where the vast majority of the people in the organization, regardless of what their title is or what their position is or what they're responsible for, ultimately or not responsible for, that they consistently display acts of leadership. So they take ownership, they take responsibility, they seize the initiative, they do a whole range of things which in that moment is leader-like behavior, okay, and where it's appropriate to do so, right? So that culture of leadership, as we began to understand it, and we started off by doing a whole bunch of different surveys around organisational effectiveness and operational efficiencies and things of that nature. We did a lot of work with a whole range of different kinds of high-performing teams, both private sector, government, etc., etc. Right? And what we came to understand was there were three key things which were the feeders to whether or not your people will consistently display acts of leadership. So the first one, up here, top right, is the fact that they are feeling engaged. They're feeling suitably engaged to go on the journey, as we describe it. There's been a lot of talk in the last few years about this thing called employee engagement. Personally, I think it kind of misses the mark in terms of what, the total thing that needs to be understood, because as you can see here, there are three circles. So it's about being engaged to go on the journey, making an in-principle commitment to go on the journey. It's then about feeling enabled. If I am enabled to do my job to a level of excellence, right, then I'm more likely to consistently display acts of leadership. And then finally, okay, this concept of empowerment, right? If I'm feeling suitably empowered, I'm likely to pursue my full potential. Now, ideally, at the very least, that's going to happen, and I'm going to pursue my potential within my role. But what we've seen in truly high-performing teams and organisations is that those people are actually catalysed to pursue their full potential as a human being, right? And that's amazing stuff, right? So, consistently display acts of leadership. When will I do that? I'll do that when I'm feeling suitably engaged, when I'm feeling suitably enabled, and I'm feeling suitably empowered. And it actually does have to happen in that order, right? You need to go through this journey to get to this point, as will become clearer a little bit later on. What is it to begin with that's going to cause me to feel engaged? Well, ultimately, it's when I have a sense of purpose, I have a sense of confidence, and I have a sense of action. And right here, right now, in the times in which we find ourselves here at the back end of March in the year 2020, having a sense of confidence and action is going to be more important than it's ever been before, right? So how do we get there? How do we create that sense of purpose, confidence, and action in our people, such that they then feel engaged to go on the journey, wherever that journey is that we're heading, wherever we're heading to right now, and such that they will begin to display acts of leadership. So let's work our way through that. I need to move my face out of the way. Come back up. Okay. So first of all, your people are going to do that on the proviso they understand the situation. They understand the total reality of what's going on, right? If you've kind of tuned into my video yesterday around the Australian cultural norms, you'll understand this is where the Aussie why really starts to show itself. Why? Why are you asking us to do this? Why are you not letting us do that? Why are we not spending money there? Why are we spending money there? Why are you hiring? Why are you firing? Why? Okay? In Australia, it's absolutely imperative that, to the degree that we possibly can, we share with our people the absolute reality of the situation that surrounds us, right? What are all the different things that are pressing in on us at the moment that are driving your decision making as a leader, as a CEO, as the owner of your business? What are the different things that are impacting on you? Right? What are the pressures? What are the influences? What's the reality of our situation that as a consequence is causing you to, get us to focus on this or change direction or even just continue doing business as usual, whatever the case may be, right? So as one of your employees, you're more likely to have me engaged when I understand the situation, when you've explained it with crystal clarity to me about the reality of what's going on. So from there, the next piece, which will further reinforce whether or not I'm engaged and whether I'm going to go on the journey or not, at least in principle, is if I see that the objectives that you want me to focus on, the objectives that you're setting for us, are both purposeful and realistic. What I mean by purposeful, so to begin with, that purposeful means that there's got to be a direct correlation between these two. If this is the situation, then the objectives that you're setting for us should be directly connected back to that, right? So we're doing things on purpose with a purpose in mind. If I've got that crystal understanding, if I understand the situation, and then I can see a correlation between the things that you're asking, the objectives that you're asking us to pursue right now, if I can see the purpose behind those, then I'm more likely to be engaged. And then here's the other piece, the realistic thing. So, in my Leader Boss Bastard conversation and video, I spoke about the fact that here in Australia, we are absolutely and utterly obsessed with not failing, right? We're not obsessed with succeeding. We're obsessed with not failing. And so this whole notion of the big, hairy, audacious goal, the BHAG as it's known, doesn't fly here. Okay, people don't see, inspiration by you raising the high bar, particularly if they don't believe that you've even put a plan in place that's effective, right? And I'm going to come to that in a moment, right? So it's got to be realistic. Yes, we might need to put effort into it. And yes, it may well require concerted effort for a long period of time, but there's a point at which we start to believe that you're setting us up to fail, right? If you start setting fanciful objectives, unattainable objectives, in the belief that you've got to stretch your people, you're going to start to disengage employees here in Australia. So the objectives that you're setting for your people right now particularly need to be clearly purposeful, and they've got to be realistic. I've got to have some hope that I've actually got a snowball's chance in hell of achieving that objective, right? That goal. So that'll be further reinforced or informed by whether or not I am confident in the strategies and plans that you good people in the sheltered workshop called head office have actually put together, right? And bearing in mind that, we're mistrustful of people in positions of authority in this country. We don't believe that our leaders are particularly effective, and, we are seeing daily examples of poor leadership. We're seeing a smattering of good leadership here and there, but our proclivity, our way of operating tends to be here in Australia that we look at the negative far more quickly than we'll look at the positive. And of course, that's not helped by the fact that the media also tend to play much, much more about the negative than they do the positive, right? So I'm not particularly confident in you as my boss to come up with a plan that's actually workable, right? And one of the things in particular that, as we've done surveys, so with this particular model that I'm unloading for you here, this actually is a survey as well. And so as we've done surveys over the last 13, 14, 15 years, one of the things that's come out fairly consistently in most organisations is that management fail to think about the things that could and will go wrong, right? Well, sure as shit, everything's going wrong at the moment, it seems. And could we have predicted this? Probably not, right? But if we back it up and just think about the last 6 months or the last 12 months, all the things that went wrong in your organization, the initiatives that imploded or failed or stalled, or those new ideas, or just anything that kind of didn't function properly. Could you have predicted it? I'm going to suggest to you, probably in 80 or 90% of the cases, you probably could have. You kind of know that, those people over there in that organisation that we're dependent on often let us down. You probably could have predicted that, one or two of the people who are critical of the team were probably going to be leaving at some stage or other. There's a whole raft of different ways in which we can look at this. Right, and so I am likely to feel more engaged to go on this journey with you if I've got confidence in the strategies and the plans that you've put together and that you're communicating out to us. And in particular, I will have confidence if I believe you've thought about all of the shit that's going to go wrong and that you've mitigated for that, right? You've got something in place. And in particular, you're not going to hold me accountable for something you failed to plan for, right? So that adds to the engagement piece. From there, the initiatives that you want me to work on, the tasks that you want me to perform, and the resources you're giving to me in order to do all of that, providing those are reasonable, right? You're not asking me to do this with both hands tied behind my back and a blindfold on. You're not asking me to kind of, put all of this stuff together and I'm using glue tack to stick it together. If this is clumsy, if it's outmoded, if it's if I'm having to beg to get the things that I need in order to do my job well, then I'm starting to check out. I'm not engaged. I'm not coming on this journey with you because you're setting us up to fail. Okay? This is a biggie right now, an absolute biggie right now. I will be more engaged if I believe you are fair income. All right, classic Aussie little phrase there. If I think that you are fair income, if I believe that you truly do give, here's another Aussie phrase, a rat's ass about me. So if you really do care about me, I'm more likely to remain engaged, right? Right. So if you're being real, if you're being fair income, if I can sense it, and remember we spoke about the bullshit meter, the built-in bullshit meter in the Leader Boss Basket presentation that I did previously. I'm watching you like a bloody hawk right now, right? And I'm watching your every move. I'm watching your every intention. And you obviously, I get that you're nervous. I get that you're scared. I get that you're stressed. I truly do. In this particular point in time, what I also want to know though is, what are you doing to help me? How hard are you really trying to make sure that I get through this okay? Yeah. The other piece that we're looking at is whether or not you're competent. And what do we mean by competent? Most times what the Aussie employee is looking at in terms of your competence is, do you actually understand what I do for a living? Right? Are you competent to lead me at a technical proficiency level? Right? And sometimes that can be a little bit unreasonable, a little bit unfair as a kind of litmus test, because the fact of the matter is, almost every Olympic gold medal winning swimmer in the last decade or so, their coach has not been a gold medal, Olympic medal winner, right? And so we don't necessarily have to be a black belt at that thing to coach others in that thing. You actually need to be a black belt at coaching. But one of the ways in which we measure our leaders and ask whether or not they're competent is whether or not they have a good enough understanding of what we do for a living. But the other way that we're looking at whether you're competent or not is whether or not you fight the good fight. So are you competent to lead? Right? Do you fight the good fight on our behalf? Are you trying to take care of us? Are you protecting us? Right? In these times, that's about, are you giving us, some kind of security, albeit in a distinctly different way to how it was a week or so ago, right? But as we get past this and as we roll out of this period of time and the economy does start to turn back up again, right, what I'm really going to be looking at is whether or not you shield us and protect us from unreasonable expectations. Right? If there's a customer who's unreasonable, to what degree do you, as my leader, protect me? Do you step in for me? If you're a leader in the middle of the organisation, okay, and there's somebody above you, to what degree do you act as the human shield between their unreasonable demands and us? Right? So they're the things that we're looking at in terms of viewing you as authentic and competent. If I absolutely believe that you are fair income, and have care for me. And if I believe that you're a really, really competent leader, then absolutely I'm going to be engaged, right? From there, it's about having a sense of worth, right? How valued do I feel in the organisation? To what degree am I genuinely comfortable that you actually see value in me? I'm not something that's expendable. I'm not just a piece of dirt down on the ground, who you kind of just treat rudely as you see fit, right? And probably one of the great stories that I love to tell around this whole sense of worth thing is the story of allegedly when President John F. Kennedy was visiting the NASA space base at what was then called Cape Canaveral. And apparently he did this quick kind of detour away from where the group were walking as they went to kind of visit the site and inspect the site. Because he'd seen two cleaners. And he walked up to the guys and said something along the lines of, "Hi there, I'm Jack Kennedy," which of course they probably knew. And then he asked them apparently a question along the lines of, "What do you do here?" One of them said, we keep the place crystal clean. We just make sure that it's sparkling and that it's perfection as close as we can get it. The other one said, "Well, I helped put man on the moon." Two distinctly different answers to the question, neither one of them any more or any less right or wrong than the other, but clearly one of them had a different understanding of his worth within the organisation, right? Right now, it's really, really important that you're spending time esteeming your people, ensuring that they have a sense of worth within themselves, that they know that you know that they are valuable to the business, and that includes the receptionist, it includes the cleaner, it includes the IT guy who's down in that kind of dungeon back office kind of place with lots of cable hanging out everywhere. All of those people who aren't in the kind of super glory roles within your organisation, every single one of them deserves to have a sense of worth, all right? So if all of those things are in place, there is a distinctly massive possibility that I'm going to have a sense of purpose and a sense of confidence and now a sense of action as well. I am now engaged to go on this journey with you. From there, you need to come down, right? And we're going to go to here. So come down to the bottom here, and you need to get me committed to role excellence. Now, when I say you need to get me, hopefully you've got people who will commit themselves to role excellence, but you still got to enable that, right? You still got to create the framework and the environment where that happens. So I'll just press enter here. Oh, thank God, they say. We're not going to have to go bubble by bubble, okay? I'll let you read that at your leisure, right? And I think most of those are probably going to be reasonably self-explanatory, but there's a couple of places where I am going to home in, right? So let's go to the 12 o'clock position just up there. This contribute to a constructive workplace dynamic, right? You will understand that I'm committing to role excellence and I'm feeling enabled when you see me contributing to a constructive workplace dynamic. And when we first started developing this model, the phrase that we had in there was in fact positive workplace dynamic, right? However, reality bites. Shit hits the fan, things go wrong, people disappoint us. Right now we are in one of the most calamitous situations than we've probably ever been in. As much as I've been through 2 or 3 kind of dips, I don't think I've had anything that feels quite like this in reality, right? And so things go wrong. And this whole notion of having a positive mental attitude, particularly in the Australian context, doesn't fly, right? So that's back to that visionary evangelism stuff that we just don't buy into that crap, right? And probably the analogy that I'll give you here is the little cartoon that I saw many years ago, which depicted a guy who had just jumped off the roof of a 32-story building. And as he's plummeting past the 18th floor, the bubble coming out of his head says, "Well, so far so good." We all know what the outcome's going to be, right? And so things do go wrong. People do let us down. There's a whole raft of things that go wrong in our businesses every single day, today more so than we had ever possibly ever imagined, and we need to have a constructive workplace dynamic, right? Not happy, clappy, positive, right? It's not about sitting around and singing Kumbaya. Let's be constructive about this. What can we do? Right? Yeah, that's stuff. Yeah, that's rooted. What can we do? What do we do about that right now? Okay? I think the others probably will make reasonable sense to you. Other than, I'll just kind of focus in on this one. So the actively collaborate piece, what we found in every high-performing team, or every high-performing organisation, was that teams were good at actively collaborating, sharing ideas, sharing resources, sharing news, sharing learnings, right? So actively collaborating in between one team and another. You know, conversely, there are other organisations where you can see people have this mentality of, that bunch of dickheads on the other side of that gyprock wall, wouldn't piss on them if they were on fire, bunch of losers, or, again, all that Aussie vernacular stuff, right? But what we found in the high-performing teams was that there was active collaboration between teams, right? And that's kind of different to this one over here about the teamwork and cooperation. So that's inter-team, this is intra-team, okay? And obviously, what you've got to be doing is you've got to be investing in me continuously and developing my capability to perform my role to a level of excellence. Alrighty, that brings us to the empowered piece. Okay, and with this one, the journey is actually from 6 o'clock up to 12 o'clock. So you take that route up on your way to getting to this outcome. And what you're intending to do here is to get the result where your team members, your employees, are pursuing their fullest potential, right? This is about as human as it gets, right? So when I feel empowered, I am going to pursue my fullest potential, right? And ideally, as I say, the very least you're going to do that for me in my role. You're going to help catalyze this environment where I'm pursuing my fullest potential within my role so that I become truly a black belt in my role. But beyond that, and in some of the more enlightened organizations, it's about helping me pursue my full potential as a human being, much, much bigger, right? And so that kicks off with this: accept responsibility, right? That's not a typo in that, it's quite deliberate, because what we're looking at here is a two-action piece, right? When we talk about responsibility, first of all, do I accept as a member of the team who may not be, at the top of the pecking order, but I'm just one of the grunts, I'm one of the worker bees, but do I nonetheless accept responsibility? Do I feel empowered to accept responsibility for doing something in certain situations, right? The phone is ringing off. I'm not the bloody receptionist. Yeah, do you accept responsibility that maybe you should answer the phone? Because guess what? She's actually in the bathroom right now. Yeah? I see a safety hazard. Well, I'm not the safety guy. I'm not the EHS guy or the WHS guy. Yeah, but can you accept responsibility for doing something about that? Even if it is going and get the WHS person. Yeah? And so examples like that. So do you accept responsibility, and has the system, has the environment, is the culture in fact promoting the notion of accepting responsibility? But from there, you then have to also have the ability to do something about it, right? And to help you understand that, let me give you an example of an organisation that I worked with a number of years ago. I'm not going to name names because we're in this public forum, right? But it was an organisation where there were a bunch of engineers who would design a bunch of very, very expensive equipment. And then across the river, literally across the river, there was a maintenance group, right? And the maintenance group would often receive equipment coming in that these guys, had designed and had built to begin with, and they'd sold it to the customer, and then the customer had done damage to it, and so it had come back into the maintenance site, right? And what they were seeing was it was the same damage in the same location all the time for this piece of equipment. And so they thought, hey, we've got an idea. Let's do a remodel. Let's restructure how this thing is actually built. So they did a redesign. They did a mod. And they sent that mod idea up to the head office. Head office then sent it to the engineers. The engineers, apparently for the first time ever, actually got in their cars, came over the bridge across the river, came to visit the maintenance people and said, hey, grease monkeys, piss off. We design stuff, you fix it. Okay, so they've taken responsibility in the maintenance department to put a fix on, which means that this equipment's not going to keep coming back and it's not going to be therefore not in service for the client. The client's getting pissed off. This thing's not making money for me right now because it's in your bloody yard needing to be repaired. So the maintenance people took responsibility for that to keep the customers happy. However, they were not given the ability to do anything about it because of an attitude from another group within the organisation. So, bit of a long-winded kind of example there, but hopefully that helps you understand what I'm talking about in terms of accepting responsibility. The rest of it, I think you would probably readily understand just by looking at the bubbles. Okay, are we creating that environment where these things can happen? And look where we are right now. Right, so right now we are all needing to navigate change, and I'm going to suggest to you, ta-da, see all those arrows that just jumped in? So this model subscribes to systems theory, system dynamics. Some of you will have heard of system dynamics via that little kind of adage that says that when a butterfly flaps its wings in the Amazon, a storm hits the west coast of the United States, right? So it's about the ripple effect, right? And what we became very, very clear on as we built this and we did the research on this and we went to loads of organisations and we observed and we surveyed and we questioned and all that kind of thing, was that all of these have a ripple effect, right? And what you'll see, what these arrows are actually depicting to you is each of the different things that affect different elements within this, right? And so right now, we need to navigate change as confidently as we can. Well, guess what? That's not going to happen if these things haven't happened. And sometimes it starts right there. Yeah? So, this is called the E3 Culture of Leadership model. I'm just going to do a couple of screen flicks and then I'm going to wrap it for now. This is what you as a leader right now need to aim for. Right? You need a culture of leadership in your business right now more than you ever have. And this is what it looks like. I guarantee you. Okay? How are you going to get there? By doing this. This is what leaders need to do if they're going to get that outcome. And I'll just spend a tiny bit of time giving you an example. If you as the leader are situationally aware, and if you both then know and explain the situation to your people, obviously they are then going to understand the situation, yeah? So if you are engaging in your manner by doing all of these things around here, then you're going to have a bunch of people who are engaged, who display a sense of purpose, confidence and action. Okay, I'm not quite sure how long that has gone for. I hope that's going to make sense for you all. What I think I will probably do is also upload this as a PDF, so that'll hang underneath the video. So go ahead and download it, put it up all over the bloody walls, become black belts at the whole E3 thing. So E3 being engage, enable, empower. And it's in that order, folks. First, you need to engage people to go on the journey. Then you need to enable them to do their job like a black belt, and then you need to empower them to realize their full potential. Engage, enable, empower in that order. Right, so I'll put a PDF up that has the model on it, download it, put it up all over the walls in your organization, become black belts at leading towards this. Over the next 21 days, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you examples on each and every one of these drivers. Okay, so we're going to take one drive at a time. It'll be probably 10 or 15 minutes tops where I'll dig into. So I'm going to talk about, what it means for the employee, but also what it means for you as a leader. What are some examples? What are some things that you can and should be doing that are going to help you get that outcome? Okay, stay strong, folks. Stay confident. I hope you're getting value out of this. If you are, please, 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 let as many people as you possibly know about this, right? I want as many people as possible to grab a hold of this stuff and use it. I'm deliberately giving this away for free. I've got no intention of asking anybody to pay me any money for this. This is not what I do anymore. I've got 4 recruitment brands to run. I don't teach this stuff anymore. So just grab a hold of it, share it with your friends. Take care. Ciao.